And we have takes. Welcome to Football Takes.
Football! Football, yeah! Football! Football!
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Score North's national title betting preview. I'm your host, Thor Nystrom, joined as always by my co-hosts Eric Froton of NBC Sports and Mike Bainbridge of the CFF site. Over the next hour here, we're going to be going over live all of our picks for tonight's Indiana-Miami national title game. Handicaps, sides, totals, and of course, player props. We're going to get pretty deep into it. Boys, you ready to go?
Indeed. Yep. Can't wait.
Well, lots of energy in the room today. We'll kick it off. This evening, 6:30 kick, ESPN. This one's at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. Have the rarity of one of the teams in this game playing in their home city. The 1 seed Miami, of course, enters 15-0. The 10 seed Miami Hurricanes at 13-2. We have a live spread on this game of Indiana by 7.5. The total has come down to 46.5. We have some serious late money on the under. My line on this game is Indiana minus 9.2, which is probably going to give away where I'm going with my pick. Just some notes on the game before we get into the handicaps and the picks here. This is the most expensive national title ticket ever, $4,000 on the secondary market. Of course, the game being in Miami, and then also Indiana, sort of the novelty of that. They lead the nation in alumni or whatever. I saw the president was on with McAfee earlier talking about how many alumni they have, but those two things have served to push the ticket prices up really high here. Of course, on the Indiana side, Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman Trophy winner, their quarterback, grew up in Miami, graduated from Columbus High. His father played high school football with Mario Cristobal. The Hurricanes, of course, passed on Fernando Mendoza coming out of high school and then gave more money to Carson Beck in the transfer portal. One interesting thing to watch here, in the BCS era, since the BCS era, Heisman Trophy quarterbacks have only gone 4-7 in national title games. Now, you would think that Miami being, right in their own backyard in this one would help them, but in-state teams are in even 4-4 in title games. So interesting stuff to watch there. Of course, we have some subplots with the coaching staffs. Miami's defensive coordinator, Corey Heatherman, is a former Kirk Cignetti assistant who knows the assistants on Indiana really good as well. And we'll sort of see how that cat and mouse game plays out. How did these two teams get here? Indiana, you start with the Big Ten title game. They beat, at the time, number 1 Ohio State by a field goal in that one. And then they've annihilated the two teams in the CFP so far. Beat Alabama 38-3 in the Rose Bowl, and then beat Oregon 56-22 last Friday night in the Peach Bowl. Miami, of course, they just kind of snuck in. Notre Dame, I don't know if Notre Dame still complaining about this or not, but Miami, they sneak in. Then they beat A&M in the first round 10-3. That one is in College Station on the very late touchdown set up by the long Mark Fletcher run. Then Miami beat Ohio State 24-14 in the Cotton Bowl, and then last time around, the last second touchdown to beat Ole Miss 31-27 in the Fiesta Bowl. Lastly here, injuries. There's nothing really new to report on the Indiana side. They have the injuries at the edge rusher position, which we've talked about in each of the last couple episodes, where Stephen Daly, the guy who had replaced the starter Kellen Wyatt when Kellen Wyatt was out for the season mid-October, then Stephen Daly has now been knocked out for this season. Stephen Daly had 19 tackles for loss in the regular season. That was second most in the FBS. The replacement, Daniel Duckwee, I think is how the last name's pronounced. He's been really good, but Indiana does have depth issues on the edge there. And one other thing to sort of keep an eye on there, Mikel Kamara, who is the stud edge rusher for Indiana, he left the game against Oregon on multiple different occasions for a couple plays here, a couple plays there, just being banged up. He said he's 100% and he's ready to go. Something to keep an eye on here because Indiana is obviously short on edge depth. There's more to talk about on the Miami side. Elijah Lofton, their tight end, is out for this game with an injury that he suffered in the last one. Then you have Xavier Lucas, starting cornerback, is suspended for the first half for a targeting in the second half against Oregon. Don't get Mario Cristobal started about that. He is still not happy about that, but we are not going to see Xavier Lucas before halftime. And then questionable in this game, Damari Brown, once again, their valued rotational boundary cornerback, once again being listed as questionable. We haven't seen him since late November. Cristobal keeps saying he's day-to-day, but he's been day-to-day now for over a month. So we'll see today. And then I believe Ahmad Moten Sr., the guy we talked a lot about in the last episode, who got knocked out of that game pretty early. It looks like he's going to play in this one. But he had the ankle injury that took him out of the Ole Miss game pretty quickly after he was questionable heading in. But yeah, it looks like that's where we're going to be at. But the big, I guess, takeaway on the Miami side, short on cornerback depth in the first half in particular until Lucas comes back. Now, we're going to divide the show into two here. We're going to start out with the Indiana offense against the Miami defense, give you the handicap on that, and then give us the player props with regard to the Indiana offense. And then we'll switch it over to the Miami side in the latter half of the show. Froton, why don't you kick us off here? Give us thoughts on the matchup of Indiana's offense against Miami's defense, how you expect that to sort of play out, strengths and weaknesses, and then your prop plays for this game on the Indiana side.
Yeah, as you mentioned, to start off with, Xavier Lucas will be suspended for the first half.
Froton, you're muted, I think.
Nope.
He's not? Okay.
No.
I got to go back in. Just keep talking, Froton.
All right. Xavier Lucas suspended for the first half against Ole Miss due to their hit against Ole Miss. O.J. Frederick, who was their typical, CB3 on the boundary corner, played just 5 snaps against Ole Miss. We talked about that as well last show. He came up limping with a left leg injury in the previous contest, and it clearly was still bothering him against Ole Miss. That could be a real problem because they ended up putting in Antoine Jabori for Lucas. He played 16 snaps, and he allowed the longest reception of the game, a 24-yarder there for Ole Miss. Only had a 40th percentile cover grade from PFF for his performance in that game. I'm concerned if he is going to be, who they sort of turn to. He didn't start a game. Charlie Becker, will be on the outside, and I would think that they would try to get in that first half at least 1 or 2 shots down on the boundary against one of these CB2s who are really like CB3 or 4s. He didn't start until week 9 against UCLA, but he's been the ace when it's time to go deep for this team. He has caught in 6 of his last 7 games. He has had at least 1 pass go for 30-plus yards. The only time he didn't catch a deep shot was in a 56-3 destruction of in-state pseudo-rival Purdue in the final game of the season, where they were resting a lot of their starters, and they ran for 355 yards against the beleaguered Boilermakers defense, with Becker just 6'4", 210. That trend of 6 of the last 7, typically you would figure you'd have the CB1 on Elijah Surratt, leaving an opportunity for Becker. I like Becker to go over his – I put him out earlier in the week on NBC for 23.5 for a long reception. I still think that only ticked up to 24.5. That's not bad. I think you could still take a look at that. And if you have Fliff, he is actually listed at 40.5 receiving yards on Fliff. He's at 47. I would say, Michael, if I'm not mistaken, around that 47 mark.
Most
49.
places 46 or 47. I do see 48 now at FanDuel, though.
Yeah, see, he's been ticking up, I think probably in large part due to the late money coming in and factoring in the suspension for Xavier Lucas. On Fliff, if you have access to that 40.5 yards, I think you're getting a pretty good amount of line value. I'd probably look at that over as well for the Charlie Becker line.
What about for you, Bainbridge?
Yeah, I just kind of want to add on to the Charlie Becker line. I was looking at, the past games this season for Miami. And if you look back at every single FBS opponent that they've faced, it has been the boundary receiver that has absolutely crushed that Miami secondary, which again, it speaks to how good of a play this potential Charlie Beck line is, being a boundary receiver himself. 20.5 yards per catch, best on the team, 3.43 yards per route run, best on the team, and 18-yard ADOT. And then going back to the games that Miami has played this season, Chaz Nimrod, 100-plus receiving yards. Deuce Robinson, 87 yards. Jordan Hudson, 100-plus yards. Chris Bell, 100-plus yards. Jeremiah Smith, 150-plus yards in his matchup with the Hurricanes secondary. With these injuries, with these suspensions, it's going to be I was having a tough time personally. I don't know if you guys have a better read for it, but it's going to be one of Becker or Surratt that's going to have a big day in this game.
Our sickos are out in full force tonight. On Underdog, they pulled down the Charlie Becker line as you guys were talking about it. So the last time this year that we're going to have these books freaking out and pulling down lines as we talk about it. Indiana's offense has been a juggernaut all college football playoff and going back here a couple months. Mendoza, Miami's going to have to figure out a way to get Mendoza off his spot. The game's over before it begins if they can't figure out how to do that. And the teams that Indiana's played so far have not been able to. Mendoza just in the CFP, 8 touchdown passes, only 5 incompletions. Mendoza has 0 multiple interception games this year. Indiana's offense has just been so balanced in the CFP, 200 rushing yards per game, 184.5 passing yards. And of course, Indiana doesn't have to throw more. They've just been flogging these teams. They have the awesome offensive line that had the argument for the Joe Moore Award, and I think is still kind of salty that they didn't win that thing. The 2 running backs with Hemby and Kalen Black have been so good. Those guys average 3.3 yards per carry after contact, and they're running behind a Joe Moore, like I said, semifinalist there. That offensive line for Indiana is going to be key here. They're number 11 nationally in pressure rate allowed, and they're number 9 in run stuff rate. They're the ones that have to contend with the trump card that Miami has in that front 7 with the dominant defensive line in particular. Miami's number 4 in the nation, 3.13 sacks per game. They're number 4 in pressure rate. Bain and Messidor, the 2 edges, have combined for 32 TFLs this year and 19 sacks. And Indiana knows this. Here's a quote from Mike Shanahan, the offensive coordinator from Indiana this year. Earlier this week. Quote, Miami's defensive line, it all starts with them. They got a lot of really talented guys. They play hard. They can be very disruptive, keeping them off balance with the run pass, but also the scheme, what they're seeing play in and play out. And then moving the pocket, changing toss points, quick game RPOs, just trying to keep them off balance and keep them guessing throughout the game. So obviously that's what Indiana's going to try to do to keep them at bay. Miami blitzes a lot. We talked about this in the last episode. Even with the stud edges, Miami still is number 21 in the nation in blitz rate. Miami, the defense, they struggle tackling. That's another bugaboo. I'm going to be watching for, can Indiana get the ball into space, effectively shuttle it out there quickly and force Miami to tackle in space, where Miami, they're 119th in tackling efficiency coming into that game. That's where some damage could be done there. Miami doesn't give up a lot of 20-plus yard completions, but they do when they start missing those tackles out on the perimeter. For my prop plays in this one from the Indiana side, I go under on the rushing for the quarterback facing Miami every single time, and it's been a very profitable endeavor this year. Fernando Mendoza, he started the week, it was 18.5 rushing yards. Now it's come all the way down. Boys, is it 15.5 now, 14.5?
It's 15.5. You can get it 16.5 at some place that it's escaping me right now. But yeah, there's a 16.5 out there somewhere.
Yeah, whatever the number is, I'm going under on Mendoza's rushing. Miami, in their 15 games, they have held quarterbacks to under. If this line was at 17.5, they've held the quarterback under that, the opposing quarterback, in 12 of 15 games. The 3 that went over it, let's see, was Kyron. Is it Kyron Jones, Marcel Reed, and Castellanos?
Yeah, and then Marcel Reed only went over because he had 15 carries, and he averaged 1.8 yards per carry. Yeah,
so and I guess if you get to CJ Carr at 16, I guess would be the next closest one. But either way, going under that number with Mendoza. Indiana says they're going to move the pocket, and that's fair. But Shanahan, and he knows this dang well, he has to keep in mind Mendoza's accuracy goes down the more he moves off of his spot. And, of course, you get sacked out there on the perimeter. It's the same thing. You also, on the Indiana side, thinking about this, because Mendoza has been effective on some designed runs, the only way that I think Indiana, where you're going to feel like horrible about your odds in this game, is if Mendoza gets a first half injury. Remember the game against Ohio State where Mendoza gets smacked on like the first or the second play, and we all thought, oh, there goes Indiana, because it looked like he suffered a concussion, and the Indiana trainer very quickly ruled that he hadn't suffered a concussion to get him back in the game really quickly. But Indiana can't they can't risk Mendoza's health either. And so for all those different reasons, I go under on his rushing. I also like the under on Omar Cooper receiving 47.5 a couple days ago when I put this in.
It's up. It's at 50.5 on Underdog, 48 on FanDuel right now. So
okay,
better deal.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm thinking you guys were kind of setting that up with where you attack Miami. It's with the boundary, and on the boundary, those receivers, especially now thinking about this scenario where you are even more depreciated in that room if you're Miami, particularly in the first half. So, yeah, I think that's where the usage is going to go there. Omar Cooper, they haven't been throwing to him quite as much since he came back from the ankle injury. So for all those reasons, I shade him under there. Now, let's move to the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
A couple things. Earlier in the week, last week, I had put out Fernando Mendoza under 7.5 rush attempts for a lot of the very reasons you're talking about, Thor. It just doesn't make sense schematically to try to attack this, Miami front in that same way. Also on Fanatics, it had 20.5 rushing yards at -140. Props to our boy Moody who posted that in the chat. I had actually looked at that earlier and put that out. And I mean, gosh, if you can get 20.5, I think it's even at the land, the -140, I'll take the extra few yards on that just to give a little bit of more certainty. So if you have access to Fanatics, I would go and look at that at the 20.5 for the Mendoza play, Thor.
Yeah, and for folks, that live like in a state like I do, like Minnesota, where you don't have the books legal, but you have the underdogs, you have the prize picks, those things. People sometimes it's like I like one bet, but then how do I make a parlay card? Froton, what you're talking about with the Mendoza lines, one of the things I noticed on, I think this was Underdog earlier this week. I was screwing around with it, but I had this thing where I wanted to put in a Miami ticket. There was one of the sides that I liked with it and was looking for an Indiana one because they make you have guys from different teams on it. You can toggle Mendoza's rushing up to something like, at least at the time you could, like 29.5. Then it becomes like a 0.65 or whatever, but you could go under on that in order to finish off a card. Is always an option out there. These books now, they give you the alternate lines, on the side where you can click and you can toggle it. So just another thing to toss out for folks as you're putting together some of these different tickets.
Yeah, and it works for a parlay purposes, as we had done before with the Texas Tech -10,000 on their basketball line, Michael.
I remember that
Michael,
episode.
right?
Yeah.
It came in. It was a little more of a sweat than we had thinking.
Yeah. I think Texas Tech was up by like 1 at halftime.
Oh my God.
Yeah, this is probably a little bit better on the hedge side than going the Texas Tech -10,000 road, or it would be. I think we talked about Michigan -4,000 for this one. Yeah, I like the idea of toggling Mendoza, as Thor mentioned.
Yeah, especially non-college basketball people like us, because whoever texts, I don't know who's on their team or whoever they're playing, who knows. But yeah, just a way to get some quick tickets in on some of those other sites. Boys, moving to the Miami offense and our friend Carson Beck against Indiana's defense here. We all know Miami's offense, what they want to do. It's the efficiency thing. It's kind of paint drying. They run at one of the slowest tempos in the nation. You do the run, you do the quick hitting passing game with Carson Beck. If they can stay in the game script that they want to stay in, we haven't seen Miami's offense in serious trouble till they get yanked out of it. And that's where things can start to get ugly, but you have to yank them out of it, which is, of course, been the issue with some of these teams facing Miami's defense, not being able to generate a lead against Miami. Froton, how do you see that matchup going? Miami's offense against Indiana's defense, and then what props did you end up pulling from that side?
Yeah, well, with Miami, first thing I want to look at is they ran 91 snaps against Ole Miss. I mean, that is such a drastic outlier. It's hard to really even put it into perspective. But for Indiana, they're defending an average of 56 snaps per game on defense. And in fact, their game against Oregon, their 70 snaps was the highest amount they defended all year long. To kind of put it in perspective, going from 91 last game down to the 56 to maybe 62 range, you're talking about cutting that deficit down by 40%. Potentially. So I do want you to be careful when trying to project what Miami's offense is going to do. Don't look to that Ole Miss game. Maybe look to old Ohio State. 57 snaps Miami played against Texas A&M, just 46 snaps. So this, the outliers that you're talking about, that's one to take a look at. So on the other side, in addition, teams are throwing against Indiana. They've really been forced into pass scripts, rank 134th 124th in passing downs run rate against, and 123rd in standard downs run rate against. So, in terms of Miami as well and how that factors into them, from the Indiana side and what teams are doing, they're actually one of the most predictable teams in the country when they are in passing down situations. They throw 75% of the time. That's the 11th most in the FBS for passing frequency. So with Carson Beck, I know Michael has this too. Their aversion to running on true pass sets puts Beck in the line of fire. He's taken 2+ sacks in each of the last 4 games, including the last game against Ole Miss with the greater snap count. Took 4 sacks, actually. And this is an Indiana line that, if you've seen and you've watched, and we talked about it in the last show as well, do an incredible job of disguising their pressures. They'll walk 6 guys up to the line and fan out 3, fan out 2, but you don't know which guys are going to go and step back. And because their average age is in the 23 years old range, these are all battle-tested veterans who are just fully plugged in on the scheme. I think that those simulated pressures, bringing Pons off the edge, saw him get one last game. The way that Indiana used those pressures is really going to put Carson Beck into the line of fire. I like his under 0.5 rushing yards. I know Michael is probably on that as well. I'd seen in the chat from one of our friends here, Iron City Brewery, he sees a 1.5 rushing yards under. I think that that's something that if you can get the 1.5, take the best you can get. Yeah, great. I mean, and with Beck, he's gone backwards in just about every game against the better defenses on their schedule. You look at Notre Dame, Florida, Florida State, Pitt, A&M, Ole Miss, all of them using negative territory. The only defense that he really was in the positive was against Ohio State. But, when you're looking at those trends, I think it doesn't particularly bode well for Mr. Carson Beck for that. And I'll let Mike expand on it a little more since he also has that play.
Yeah, I mean, this when I was thinking about this game, the quote that came to mind was that Mike Tyson one where it's like everybody's got a plan until you get hit in the mouth. And it's like everybody's been saying Miami wants to run, but Indiana forces teams that they're going to have to throw. And I see them getting out of game script, and I feel like it's going to be Carson Beck having to throw to win this game. And that's why I like the under on rushing yards. It's been negative rushing yards in 3 out of the last 4 games. Indiana's obviously tied for third in the country in sacks. They've got 6th in the country in sacks per game at 3+ sacks in 2 of the playoff games already. 24+ sack yards in each of the last 3 games for this Indiana defense. So I really like this under on Carson Beck rush yards. And it's amazing to think about where this Indiana rush defense has come from since week 1. Do you guys remember what happened week 1 with Indiana?
Was it ODU?
They played Old Dominion and they ran on.
Colton Joseph ran for 179 yards on this defense. It's probably a lot of garbage time yards where it came in the second half. Game is already in hand. But just they've come a long way, and I really like. We got to bet some Carson Beck unders, right?
We got to bet some Carson Beck unders, and I think Thor will probably have another under on Carson Beck.
Yeah, I do have one over on Carson Beck. We'll get to it in a second.
Well, and that it's sort of informed.
Literally my last shot today.
Indiana, keep in mind too, they've created 29 turnovers with a plus 21 turnover margin. Just again, a well-oiled machine. Just 8 turnovers on the year. 5 of them were interception by Fernando Mendoza. I mean, just 3 lost fumbles all year long. It's pretty amazing. And obviously, we know with Carson Beck, he is turnover prone, to say the least. I've got a play based on Indiana and their tendencies. We have seen time and time again. Well, actually, I'll say this is my best bet. You want me to save the best bet for the end of the show? Is that probably what we should? Okay, we'll save it. It's up there. I might as well talk about it. My favorite play of this, and myself, Mike, we have hit this with a hammer to the best of our ability. This is my biggest position. On DraftKings, we have Indiana under 4.5 ball carriers. We're getting plus 120 money on that particular bet, it blows me in mind. You look at the competitive games. Yeah, last week against Oregon, sure, we got we got Kobe Martin getting 4 carries at the very end of the game in a game that was 42-7 midway through the third quarter. It was over. It was done. Yeah, maybe he gets a look here, but all the other ones, 3 ball carriers, maybe you get an Omar Cooper backwards pass, that counts as a rush attempt. Unless this game is an absolute blowout, which given the under type script, I think we're all sort of expecting to happen. I can't imagine that we're going to see 5 ball carriers. Maybe you see Brother Mendoza come in, take a kneel. Maybe it's so blown out that you get a Kobe Martin appearance. But even if you get Kobe Martin carrying the ball once, that's still only 4 to go with Mendoza and the 2 running backs. You see Kalen Black and Hemby taking all of that work in that backfield. I love best bet, the under 4.5 ball carries. And they're kind of along the same vein with Miami. We've got under 7.5 players to have a reception. Now, that doesn't mean have a target, such as Josiah Trader, and you have Joshua Moore, and you have both running backs. Usually you have one, not both of them, getting a reception. I love the under 7.5 players to have a reception over there. That's an even minus 115 if you can go out there and find it. And then lastly, on the Miami front, when they're throwing, as we had talked about, they're throwing in passing down situations. And with Indiana, the way they simulate pressure, the way that they are typically playing their corners off the ball, usually 10 to 12 yards off the ball, not a lot of press man you see them playing. Which is a hallmark of good defenses, they're willing to give up the flats, but they're not willing to give up the downfield play, which with Miami, they're not particularly explosive the way that they throw anyways. They're not, in terms of the way that they get the ball and they move it, they're, marching down the field. You look at their rushing tendencies, 126th in yards per successful rush, 91st in completions of 20+ yards. And that sort of style of play works out to the shorter passing game, which, again, with Carson Beck and his 11 interceptions, helps limit the risk downfield of Carson Beck airmailing one like he is known to do, as Thor will sure be happy to pontificate upon. I think you see him more in the flats. And with Elijah Lofton, as Thor had mentioned, already considered out for this game, we saw Alex Bauman play 45 receiving snaps. He's going to be out there all game long, the Tulane transfer. I think he goes over his 1.5 receptions because simply it's a case of volume play. It's a case of, you go, block, leak out. Makes all the sense in the world. He's caught 2 or more passes in 3 of the last 4 games. And with Lofton out, I see no reason for that trend to discontinue.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. With Lofton out, Bauman's going to be out there the whole time, like you mentioned. So, yeah, right now, 12.5 receiving yards for Bauman. Yeah, I think he's going to get over that. You look at Miami's offense, efficient, not at all explosive. And when you think about the handicap, Indiana's defense, they do allow some explosive plays every now and again, but they muck up efficiency as well as anyone in the nation. Carson Beck, you're talking about the interceptions there. 6 of the 11 Beck interceptions have come in Miami's 2 losses. Typically, when you can pull them out of the game script like we were talking about before, Miami does have the really good offensive line. Studs, both tackles, Markel Bell, the 6'9", 345-pounder, and then you have Mayoga on the other side. They have an All-American center and Brockemeyer on the inside. They're going to try to grind Indiana initially in this thing, starting out with Fletcher and Brown, and then they're going to do the slow pace thing, 131st adjusted pace heading into this game. The issue, which we sort of presented, is Miami is exceptional at preventing rushing efficiency, might be the best in the nation. They're number 3 success rate, number 2 stuff rate, number 4 EPA per run. The thing that you can do sometimes to Miami's run defense is to rip off explosive runs. Miami doesn't generate any of those. They don't have running backs like that. Miami loves that short passing game. This is the area Miami could have a small amount of success because Indiana plays drop zones in defense. Indiana plays, they're number 1 in the nation in zone rate that they run. So Indiana runs the least man coverage in the nation. And because they drop back a bit, you can nick them for short completions yards. Indiana was number 76 in the nation in completion percentage against heading into this game. So I do think I think Miami's going to try to start running like they do. I think that the lights are going to get shut out on that right away, and Miami's going to realize it's the short passing game. That's the only way we can win this game, and you're going to live and die with that after that. But because of that, that's why I went over on Carson Beck on 19.5 completions. I think he's going to throw 1 billion times. I don't think he's going to often throw beyond 5 yards, beyond the line of scrimmage in the first half at least, as long as the game is within single digits. So I think he's going to pile up those short completions. I'm on the under half of a rushing yard for Beck. He's going to get sacked. So like that one. Of course, I'm going over on his interception. Which I would have done either way. It's my favorite prop bet, and I'm disappointed that this is the last time I'm ever going to be able to bet it in college. Although, Carson, wherever you end up, I will be looking for your preseason games heading on there.
I'm glad you specified preseason and not regular season.
It's going to have to be preseason, but I'll make sure to get it. But yeah, we're going over on the Beck interception. We got it last time. He had gotten us in the previous couple games, but yeah, because I expect Indiana to control this thing, there is going to come a time in this game where Carson Beck in the second half is going to have to start throwing down the field. That's where you have big time issues there. So I like the over. I like the Beck to get an interception. I like him less than the 0 rushing yards. I like him on the over the 19.5 completions. And then as far as the game goes, I'm laying the 7.5 points with Indiana. I know that the Sharps have come in late week on Miami, and whatever. I don't care. I've seen this Miami team play football, and if they can turn it into a rock fight, that's the thing that they can be competitive in. How are you going to turn this thing into a rock fight against Indiana? I don't think you're going to be able to drag them down to your level. You're going to have to play Indiana's game. Everyone this season has had to. I don't see what the exception here is going to be. And once you are trailing them, that's where they got you. That's where the turnovers are going to start to pile up for Miami. The under I like as well, and that's another thing that's gotten money here late in the week. Although I will give the caveat that was my favorite play in last week's game on Friday. And you see I looked up, we were doing the live show at Mystic Lake at the Hop House, looked up, and D'Angelo Pons, the first play from scrimmage, does the pick six. I knew after the first play from scrimmage, I'm not going to be hitting my under bet. So with that caveat being said, but without stuff like that right away in the game, if Miami can just get into the second half, not being pulled out of their game script, I really like the under in this one. So, and a play that I've done a couple times is parlaying the Indiana money line with the under. So you can do this a couple different ways, but that's where I would go with it.
Curious how you feel about that, and this kind of dovetails on Carson Beck. I had put out his earlier in the week. He came out at 27.5 pass attempts, which I thought was, given the script that we're likely to see, even though these two teams are fairly methodical, Miami gets down with the short passing game. That just seems like that was way too low. Now up to 29.5. How do you think that is still a possibility to get in the 30 range, even giving the potential that this could be a rock fight type scenario?
100%. Like I just think it's going to be. I think 20 for 30 should be almost seen as a baseline there, right? With all the passes you're going to have within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, and Miami's going to have to keep throwing until the end. Again, assuming that they're not winning this game. Now, that could be my logical fallacy here. Obviously, if it flips around, that's the thing that allows Miami to just run until the end. That's where our Carson Beck over the attempts and the completions, where it could go wayward. But that you have to really trust that Miami's going to be successful in the game to get there. My handicap, it's a different way, and it's the thing where it's going to require Miami to keep the ball in the air 1,000,000 times. So I like both the over on completions and attempts.
Good stuff, brother. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, Bainbridge, do you have any other ones for this game? Any other plays or thoughts?
Yeah, the ones the ones that we haven't talked about already, and it's these ones, kind of allude to what you just said with Miami having to throw a lot. I do like the JoJo Trader over 3.5 receiving yards. That is now even odds over at FanDuel. He's caught a pass in 7 of the last 8 games. So if he catches a pass, he's most likely going to go over 3.5 receiving yards. So I like that. The one that I did the research on, and I'm hoping and praying that this one hits. And if you want some early juice in this first quarter, I would go over 5.5 receiving yards for Keelan Marion. from Miami, and then you can parlay that if you so choose with on FanDuel with Keelan Marion catching a pass on the first drive. He has done that in 5 of the last 6 games. So if he's catching a pass, he's most likely going over 5.5 receiving yards in the first quarter. However you want to do it. So if you want to play solo, if you want to parlay those, I really like that play for Keelan Marion.
I love that tidbit that you pulled up with the first drive receptions. Yeah,
he's been the guy for Miami in this college football playoff.
And you like, because it's a game script thing. You saw there was the manufacturer. I'm trying to remember. I think it was out to the right sideline, but right away in the last game, that's they know where the ball's going. They know they're going to complete it because it's right after the snap. Right, like I forgot if it was a funnel screen or what it was, but that was a design play, and that's what they do almost every single game. Curious if Indiana, their defensive staff picks up on that, and they try to riverboat gamble right away. Right, they see Carson turn out to the right sideline, and can we get someone trying to jump that? Maybe get Pons out there.
It's plus 200, right? So just throw some pizza money on that one. I do really love the over 5.5. Receiving yards in the first quarter for Marion, because it's clear that they are targeting him early in the football game.
100%. Yep. Yeah, the short passes are going to be big there. And then to your point about Trader, it does seem like they try to get, they do. It's primarily the 3 receivers, but Trader, we see him on the field in every game, and they try to get him the ball when he is out there. So yeah, it's the half of a reception for Trader. He's going to get his opportunity, and again, it's going to be all the short passes there. Just thinking about like the game, like the overall handicap. I didn't put any. I do the adjusted door line and everything, and like for some of the bowl games, I'll put a small home field advantage one way or the other. This one I did none, because there is a shot that Indiana has more fans than Miami in this one. The projections I've seen have all been around 50-50, but I don't know how you give Miami like a home field advantage in this one. So I took that off. Special teams. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I am seeing on the message boards that Fat Joe and DJ Khaled are in the stands. So maybe that gives Miami more of a home field advantage. I don't know.
Well, I feel it.
Or less, maybe, with DJ Khaled.
Fat Joe, I don't think Fat Joe is fat anymore.
Skinny Joe?
He might be Ozempic Joe, and DJ Khaled though. He seems to bask at that. But anyway, the special teams wash. Special teams really close here. You just look at SP Plus. Indiana 29, Miami 31. They have similar strengths and weaknesses. The weakness on both sides is neither of them can kick long field goals. So something to watch here. When either of them, they have to go the 50 plus. They're going to go for it on 4th down, a much higher preponderance, because they don't like doing the long field goals. But a couple of sort of hidden areas, or not so hidden, that are huge advantages for Indiana in this game. Penalties is number 1. Indiana, number 2 nationally, fewest penalty yards per game. Miami is number 85. And you have a difference of roughly 30 penalty yards per game that you would project Indiana to just start out at a plus 30 heading into this one. And then the other thing is the coach, and this is less quantifiable, but the coaching, huge advantage to Indiana. Cristobal, I like him as a builder. He seems like he's good with the players, but in-game management stuff, clock management stuff, failure to make adjustments. There's been a lot of times where he's playing checkers and the guy across from him is playing chess. And Kirk Cignetti is Bobby Fischer plus Deep Blue, right? I mean, he's the best chess player we got in college football right now. So they're going to have a huge advantage there as well. That's what led me to the Indiana side and laying the points. Boys, you mostly do the props, but for the people out there, you give them an idea of how you think this game's going to go and what your prediction is.
I like that under, specifically. I know that has sort of been trending in that direction, but you look at the way Miami has played these playoff games. Look at the Texas A&M game, 10-3. I think he had 108 passing yards, Carson Beck on that. And you sort of replayed that as well against Ohio State. I think I had 143 for that. So they would prefer to try to grind if at all possible. I think they'll come out, at least in the first half, both teams will try to control the clock and control the ball. So I think, script-wise, that's, if I'm going for a non-prop, I would lean in that direction. I am looking at the Better Vision app right here, which is the best app you can find. If you're looking at DraftKings, if you're looking at, Caesars and any of them, they have the best odds for each one of these props. And I was just looking at the Miami situation, I mean, with the Keelan Marion, he's only at 3.5 receptions. If we're looking at that 19.5 completions, which is currently where we're at over for Carson Beck, informed upon the opinion that Mike was talking about with Keelan Marion, that could be something to look at as well. And it's even money with these reception lines. You can be heavy juice on either side. The fact that it's balanced at -114, it kind of gives you more of an advantage. And it just seems like CJ Daniels has been phased out a little bit more, and that Keelan Marion has been the preferred outside option. Also look at Malachi Thomas at 5.5 receptions. Man, Malachi, he's been at 5 each of the past 3 games against Indiana with this sort of a script. Did they give him more of the manufactured touches, jet motion type stuff? I think it's certainly worth taking a look at for if even maybe in a spice it up sort of a parlay situation. So. Yeah,
and did you guys hit on the Malachi Toney half of a passing yard?
We got a passing yardage line. Yeah. -320. I think it might be up to -330. I took a piece of that. I know Mike and I had talked pre-show. We're like, how can we war game this with a college basketball game? Maybe
Michigan money line. Michigan plays Indiana tomorrow. They'll all be hungover after they win today. So
that's true.
Right.
Yeah, Michigan money line basketball plus the Malachi Toney under passing yards.
Right. And what do you say? That took it down from like 330 to
-280,
270, 280. All right. Well, we're doing what we can to try to get that juice down, but it's hard not to take a speculative under, have a little fun, maybe throw in a parlay on principle if you want to juice one of these regular plays that we go with.
100%. Any final thoughts, boys, before we let the folks go? Within an hour at kick here?
I would say just thank you to everybody who supported us. We appreciate everything. It's been an incredible year. It seems like it goes so quickly, but we had so much fun in the meantime. We're at 63.2% in terms of the show's accuracy rating for the season. To my knowledge, I think that's, if not the most profitable show or most accurate show out there, I would think it would be in the very apex of gambling-related programs. So we're really proud of being able to help you guys win money because, as we know, the books, they use the ban or bankrupt strategy, all right? So they'll take all your money if you're losing it, and they'll ban you if you're winning enough. So no matter where you're at on your other plays and the other sports you do, we know that we have been able to help you at least try to balance out that bankroll and hopefully end up on the positive side. And one last thing that Michael made sure that I mentioned, F Charlie Baker. He's trying to take the president of the NCAA, trying to take our college football props away from us on a federal level. Listen, I don't know. Yeah, maybe St. Bonaventure basketball. They're doing first half under some nonsense like that in the basketball realm. Look, in the Power Four, okay, these guys, anybody you're seeing on the field is making 6 figures at this point. It's a Power Four guy. You can't scale these props. As we all know, you're not getting down $400,000 on a 4-half. Who's even taking these lines that happen in this recent stuff? This doesn't apply to us, Charlie Baker. We're out here betting 200 and 300. Maybe you get $500 on a prop, and it's unbelievable. Like, oh my gosh, we got $500 down. None of these players who are making 6 figures are sniffing or going anywhere near messing around with these lines. You're not hearing any of that in college football because it's now a professional sport. Ask Dante Moore and his $7.5 million if college football is now a professional sport. He refused to go to the Jets, which, hey, who can blame him for that? Who wants to play quarterback to the New York Jets? I do not blame him at all. But when you're getting $7.5 million, it makes it a lot easier from Phil Knight and the boys over there at Nike to justify that decision. These guys aren't going to affect games when you have 12 regular season games, everything's riding on it, and you've got hundreds of thousands into the millions, right, of money. This isn't an issue in college football, at least in the Power 4 level, and not even the G5. Those guys are getting paid too. If they're playing, they're getting paid. It's not even on their radars. This is unfair to us. Stop it, Charlie Baker. Stop the insanity. You want to do what you want with college basketball and the D2 schools or that madness. Yeah, do what you got to do. But leave our props alone. This is a professional sport. These guys are paid athletes. Screw you, Charlie Baker. See, Mike?
Hey,
was that good, Mike?
Leave our props alone.
That's right. Pink Floyd said it best.
Yeah.
Can I end with this?
Of course.
Do we have a consensus prop MVP for this year? It's usually Iowa quarterbacks. I had a couple nominees.
Yeah, let's hear them.
Ricky Collins was beautiful to us.
Ricky was good.
Absolutely beautiful.
In the chat, by the way, put in who you think was prop MVP this year. We need some ideas. Yeah.
Robbie Ashford from Wake Forest.
Robbie Ashford.
He's been an MVP candidate for a couple years now.
Yeah.
And then your favorite, Eric, Mr. DJ Alessio, Aiden Childs. More so.
Aiden Childs, Destiny's Childs. And his destiny was to make us money this year, of course. God, they just kept putting him out, even though our boy DJ Alessio he was pumping the mega mix all season long. I mean, we saw it before apparently the book saw it, and that was the beauty, man. I hope we get these props in the early season because by the time week 10 rolls around, it's like, all right,
Danny Boy.
No.
That would be yours for Froton, right?
That would be mine.
Yeah.
Oh, Danny boy. Oh, Danny boy.
The
bets are calling. But not just Danny boy. Like, we got to go with the entire Wisconsin QB situation. We got 8 weeks of glory out of the Wisconsin QBs. They played 5 guys. But it didn't matter who started. They weren't finishing the game. Even if they did, it was in the 60 to 90-yard range. That was my personal favorite. Wisconsin was so good to us. And because they were so good to us, we support Luke Fickell being retained by Wisconsin.
Sure do.
Thank you. Thank you, Wisconsin, for doing the right thing and bringing Luke Fickell back for another year where hopefully Charlie Baker doesn't impede our ability to make money off of him.
No, Charlie Baker hasn't gotten any legislation through for a while, so I think we're fairly safe against Mr. Baker and his machinations. But with that, we are moving in on kickoff now, only 40 minutes away. I have company coming over. I'm sure a lot of you folks out there do as well for national title parties. So we're going to shut this thing down. But we appreciate y'all for joining us all season long. Early on, it was on Twitter Spaces, and then migrating over here to score with us for the bowl episodes here down the stretch. Really appreciate y'all. We couldn't put on this show without y'all. So you guys are the real MVPs, and we really appreciate you. Everyone that Bacon Fuel putting with the prop sheets every time, and all the different guys that pitched in, everything that everyone else out there did. We really appreciate you in our eternal war against the sports books. We all have to pitch in, and we appreciate all of you. But for that and with that, for my co-hosts, Mike Bainbridge and Eric Froton, I'm Thor, signing off for this season. Let's go enjoy this national title game. Let's cash some tickets. We'll talk to you next time.